by the awesome tragedy in Boston on yesterday that took the life of a little 8-year-old boy who was probably at that moment just as happy as he could be, congratulating his father. Lord, we ask you to touch those families, give them comfort, as only you can do. We ask you to give us the ability to do this job in a fair and just manner. These and all the blessings we ask in thy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The clerk will call the roll, please.
Mr. Burford?
Here.
Mr. Riddick?
Here.
Mr. Smeagol?
Here.
Dr. Whibley?
Here.
Mr. Wynn?
Here.
Mr. Frame?
Here, the motion is to excuse Mr. Prodigero and Councilwoman Weed.
Mr. Burford?
Aye.
Mr. Riddick?
Aye.
Mr. Smeagol?
Aye.
Dr. Whibley?
Aye.
Mr. Wynn?
Aye.
Mr. Frame?
Aye. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Norfolk City Council chambers. We are going to have a brief meeting here this afternoon. The purpose of the meeting is for the presentation by the city manager of the proposed FY14 budget. And so thank you for joining us, and we will turn the podium over to the city manager, Marcus Jones.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Good afternoon. This afternoon, I'll present to you, as the mayor said, the FY 2014 budget. Before I go into it, I'd like to just tell you a little bit about this budget to give you the Reader's Digest version. Basically, it's a $1.2 billion budget that employs 5,000 people. But more important to that, it provides services to about 250,000 residents here in Norfolk. But it also serves a city that is the cultural, educational, medical, business, and financial hub of the region, a region of 1.7 million people. In terms of the general fund budget, it's about $811.5 million. That's roughly 1.5% increase over the FY 2013 budget. That's about $11.7 million. And I would like to tell you the key takeaways of that additional $11.7 million. About 50% of that is targeted for what we call lifelong learning and K through 12 education. Another 27% is for health care and retirement costs. 16% is for a salary increase, 2% for city employees, beginning January 1, 2014. And lastly, 7% of this net increase is for all the other allocations in the budget. To put this into perspective, it's about $775,000. And that $775,000 on an $811.5 million budget is somewhere in the range of 0.1% of 1% of additional growth. So as we turn the page to discuss what's most important in this budget, it's really the people. We call it Team Norfolk, and I'll tell you, I can date back to February 2011 when I started this job. And I think by any measure it was a tough couple of weeks for a new city manager. But over the past 2 years, this Team Norfolk, whether it's the 5,000 employees or the 250,000 residents, this team has shown grit. And I think the best way to describe grit is from Angela Duckworth from the University of Pennsylvania, where she says, grit is nothing more than perseverance and passion for long-term goals. And I believe that all things being equal, you give me somebody with grit on my team, and I can give you a team that can outperform anybody else. In terms of this team, they've exceeded my expectations, and I am a rather conservative evaluator. The expectation is then when you exceed expectations is that there is some type of compensation that's associated with it. I met with staff yesterday. I met with staff again this morning to basically apologize to them that we'd love to do more in this proposed budget in terms of salaries based on their hard work and their grit. We strive to be the region's employer of choice, and in that we try to provide greater opportunities for our employees to strengthen both their skills for their professional growth and development, but also to offer opportunities for them for career advancement. I realize that we're building a bridge from a well-managed government to the future, and with that, we'll build a stronger city, and this Team Norfolk concept. I ask for their patience as we build this bridge, but more important, I depend on their grit. So time after time, this great city has shown leadership, and we will continue to march to that beat as we move forward. There's always been big ideas, big dreams, and big vision, and that's shown throughout the city, whether it's Ward's Corner, Broad Creek, Granby Street, both north of Brambleton and south of Brambleton, the south side, Ocean View Park Place. Actions are occurring around the city that represent these big ideas, the big dreams, and the big vision. This is grounded in a well-managed government. Basically, in FY 2012, we started 5 initiatives: the Neighbors Building Neighborhoods, the Healthy Norfolk Initiative, Impact, Norfolk Flooding Strategy, and the Priority Setting Process. Since that time, we've added 2 additional, we could say, focus areas: that's smart processing and the Norfolk Emerging Leaders Program. Staff and our community support for these initiatives has been nothing other than outstanding, and it all begins with the priority setting process. Back in September 2011, the council established 6 priorities, and it's been a roadmap for us for the last 2 years. You can say that in FY 2014, it's a continuation of the agreement that we had during this current fiscal year, where for a particular level of resources, we provide a particular level of services. Those 6 priorities, during the council retreat, 2 started to rise above the other 4 priorities. While they're all important, we begin to have a discussion about economic vitality and workforce development and lifelong learning. Just as a refresher, again, back in 2011, these 6 priorities were established. Lifelong learning is more than just K-12 education. It's really residents of all ages are able to reach their full potential and support a prosperous economy. In terms of economic vitality and workforce development, it focuses on growing and diversifying our economy, enhancing the quality of life of citizens. These 2 priorities work together. Then if you start to review the last 3 budgets that have been presented to you, there's more or less a theme, but in each time it was always forward-looking. And that first budget was really a blank slate with endless possibilities. The FY13 budget that we currently have, it was basically starting the building blocks of those 6 priorities. And in the budget that we present to you today, lifelong learning and economic vitality serve as a bridge from where we are today to where we'd like to be in the future. And how we allocate these resources is very important to how that bridge is built. So the budget, how do we allocate the resources? In the current budget, we have roughly a $799 million budget, which has expenditures and revenues which are in balance. But then there's the concept of a structurally balanced budget. While we have the revenue and we have the expenditures that are balanced, the ongoing revenue or resources do not meet our ongoing expenditures. And that's a term that has come up over and over again, the structural imbalance in the budget. Back in February, we talked about the 5-year plan. We do not limit ourselves to reviewing the budget just 1 year. We try to forecast what's happening for the next 5 years. And while we had a gap of about $7 million in February to close out the FY14 budget, much of that gap was closed by one-time resources. And I'll talk a little bit about that. While it's very good to have a surplus, but for the most part, when we have a surplus, that surplus is used for one-time expenditures. In the past, in order to preserve jobs, we have used those surpluses and rolled them into the next fiscal year. But as you can see by this chart, the blue representing the revenue and the red line representing the expenditures shows that even in the out years, the revenue does not support just our ongoing expenses. There's a history of this, and you can go back 20-plus years in the 2 previous city managers, and over again, whether it's 1992 or 1994, 2005, there's been this recurring theme of trying to get this budget in a structural balance. So what have we done, and why is 2013 and 2014 similar to past situations? Well, basically, there are at least 4 ways that you can address a gap in the budget. There's raise revenue, cut expenditures, grow the economy, or become more efficient. Over the last 2 years, we've spent a great deal of time of cutting expenses and becoming more efficient. And building for the future, I believe there needs to be a new focus on growing the economy and through that actually raising revenue. So what happened in 2012? Well, there are some good things that we did to hold down expenditures. We had a voluntary retirement incentive program where close to 150 employees took advantage of that. We have cross-collaboration between departments, and we consolidated departments for services for increased efficiencies, and we eliminated positions. In the current budget year, we took on new initiatives, for instance, outsourcing services that we didn't do as good a job as couldn't be done in the private sector. But there were some cases that we could provide enhanced services by bringing those services in-house. We strengthened our partnerships with outside agencies, and then we engaged in a great concept of shared services, both internally within the city and across the region. There's a series of initiatives that occurred with shared services. Something as simple as grass cutting with the Housing Authority, where we combined our services to provide a better outcome, to the regional collaborative efforts between sign shop, elevator inspections, and public safety training have all been very good. But I'd like to focus on the last two items we have here, the storehouse and healthcare. As a part of this shared services initiative across the region, the consultant suggested that if the city decentralized the storehouse operations, which is a best practice across the country, there could be savings of maybe $500,000. As well as health care, the concept was if you had Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, and Norfolk all under the same health care system, there could be savings across the region. But we didn't want to wait for additional analysis. We started immediately with the storehouse. And I can tell you that by decentralizing the storehouse in this FY14 budget, it results in about a $1.7 million recapture to the general fund. Healthcare. We're going to have a city-administered healthcare program starting in 2014. In between, we have basically a consortium, NRHA, Norfolk Public Schools, in the city. In between these three entities, we will have savings of north of $5 million just for the city alone. By the city administering the program, we will have savings of about $2 million. Now, employees will have savings of close to $550,000. So again, by using the advice from the consultants in this regional approach, we're able to save money by becoming more efficient through shared services. We're very limited in the revenue increases over the past few years. As I mentioned, we focus more on efficiencies and cutting. And if you go back the last 2 years, there were only 3 revenue increases, and only one of those came to the general fund, and that was a cigarette tax increase. The stormwater fee, that goes to the stormwater fund, and the bad tax has a dedication associated with it. During that same period of time, other cities, not only did they raise stormwater fees, the bad tax, and even cigarette tax, they also raised personal property tax, meals tax, and real estate tax, something that Norfolk did not do. So turning to real estate tax, which is a major source for all the localities, I'll point to you some examples of the last few years. While the city did not raise the real estate tax, Portsmouth, both in FY11 and in FY12, raised the real estate tax by 3 cents each time for a total of 6 cents. Virginia Beach last year raised their real estate tax by 6 cents, which was actually worth about $29 million. Some of that went to the school system, and some of that went to the Virginia Beach General Fund. Suffolk, in 2012, they raised their real estate tax by 6 cents. In the 2014 budget, there's a proposal to raise the real estate tax by another 6 cents for a total of 12 cents. As you cross the water to the peninsula, there are 2 proposals right now. In Newport News, that's a proposal to raise the real estate tax by 12 cents, which is worth about $16 million to the jurisdiction. And there is also a move or recommendation in Hampton, really is 3 tiers to raise the real estate tax, either 13 cents for basically status quo, 15 cents for new enhancements, or 23 cents where the city believes that that would be optimal in terms of services and resources. That 23-cent increase is worth about $23 million to Hampton. And in the Hampton case, it is an arrangement that there would be a split between both the city and the school system. Real estate tax is difficult for us to begin with as a city in terms of raising it. As you can see in the table, basically, Norfolk, it's great to have the Navy, it's great to have the port, it's great to have 5 institutions of higher education, but they're tax exempt. So we have a greater portion of our real estate that's off of the tax rolls. So for instance, and this is from the Department of Taxation, the last report that we have that shows a comparison across the region, and this would be FY 2012. Basically, you have the state aggregate being about 12.4%. So you have Virginia Beach and Suffolk and Chesapeake that's below the state aggregate in terms of tax-exempt real estate. Then you have Norfolk that's at almost 37% of the real estate off the tax roll. So put a different way, there's another report that comes out and discusses the most fiscally stressed localities across the Commonwealth. So out of the 134 cities and counties, Norfolk ranks 11. It's not that we're doing something that's not good. It's just that our ability to raise revenue is limited versus other localities. If we bring it closer to home, you will see that Norfolk ranks highest in fiscal stress in the region. So we have Norfolk, Portsmouth, Newport News, and Hampton that are high fiscal stress. But then you have Suffolk, Chesapeake, and Virginia Beach that are below the average stress. So again, their ability to raise revenue is much stronger than the city. So real estate tax revenue, one of the things that I think we could do a better job as administration is to basically explain how we get revenue from real estate. It's really 2 variables. It's the assessed value times the rate. You take the assessed value times the rate, and that gives you the revenue that we collect. I think there are probably 3 points in time that I'd like to present to you. One is that in 2003, the average assessed value for the city was $8.6 billion. By 2013, that assessed value grew to $17.5 billion. A great news story. But sometimes we don't talk enough about the peak being FY 2010, when assessed values were $18.5 billion. So between 2010 and 2013, we've lost $1 billion of assessed value. And that, again, the assessed value times the rate is how we get revenue. So if we put this into perspective, and I believe I've shared this with council during the forecast update in February, and I call it the blue bars and the red bars. If you review the blue bars, and that's FY 2006, 7, and 8, you have assessed values growing higher than we ever had anything on record. I could tell you that as you start to look at the last 3 decades, including 2014, the last 10 years, assessed values grew at about 7%, the last 20 years at about 5%, and the last 30 years at about 6%. So when you have assessed values in 2006 growing at 16.8%, 2007 at 24.9%, and 2008 at 17.5%, clearly you have something that's out of whack. So what occurred during that time is council reduced the tax rate. So again, the assessed value times the tax rate gives you revenue, and reduced the tax rate by 29 cents. And by reducing the tax rate by that 29 cents, it provided relief to residents. But then we move over to the red bars. The red bars represent 3 consecutive years of decline in overall assessed values, not residential, but overall, everything that is taxed in real estate. That was a $15 million loss between 2011, 2012, and 2013. And during that same period of time, the rate stayed at 111. So as the assessed values increased in 2006, in 2007, and 2008, there was a corresponding rate adjustment downward. But there was no corresponding rate adjustment upward like in some of the other localities. So therefore, about 25% of our portfolio, which is real estate, has taken a tremendous decline over the last few years. This next graph puts it into a longer perspective. As I mentioned beforehand, the 10 to 30-year average is somewhere between 5 and 7%. So if you think about your portfolio, 25% of your portfolio growing between 5 and 7%, that's good news. These three gold bars represent recessions. So the recession in 1991, you can see that it took almost 10 years before assessed values got back up to a 4% increase, which is still less than the 10-year average, the 20-year average, the 30-year average. When you get to the latest recession, 2008, 2009, you can see that we have 3 consecutive years of decline, where even if you went back to 1995, where that looks like a small decline, that decline was decline overall. Residential still grew. So during that same year, so we're at a point right now in history that is unprecedented. If you take a look at the next slide, I mentioned residential assessments. They account for 66% of our overall assessments. And when you go to 2014, residential assessments are declining once again. The overall assessments are increasing, but residential assessments are declining by about 1%. So that's all in about an $18.5 million loss in potential revenue. That's about 11 cents on the real estate tax rate, or a 10% increase in overall assessments. Our needs continue to be significant, whether it's funding for lifelong learning, funding for infrastructure, funding for neighborhoods, or funding for personnel. The needs are outweighing the revenue that we can generate. But it's very important to keep these in front of us because it's important to keep our community competitive. So again, our challenge, ongoing resources versus ongoing needs. In building the FY14 budget, 2 things became very clear to us, is that some of the actions that we have taken, while I'm very proud of those actions, in other words, keeping people employed as opposed to having massive cuts and massive layoffs to personnel. Someone could have come in and balanced the budget pretty quickly by laying off 200 to 300 staff members, but that has a negative impact on services, and that's something that's a priority for the city. But if we focus on FY13 and FY14, that $799 million budget in FY13, $19 million of it is what we call carry forwards, or one-time in nature. The surplus from 2011, which was great, we used about $6 million of that and moved it into 13. The savings that we had during FY12, almost $8 million, we also moved those savings into 13, but they weren't ongoing. In the FY14 budget, the same thing is occurring. We have roughly an $812 million general fund budget, but the surplus that we had last year, $8.6 million, we had to use every penny of that surplus to balance the FY14 budget. Unlike the previous year where we used some of that surplus for getting our reserves up, something that's very important, one time for one time. In order to preserve jobs and to keep a level of service that we agreed upon in FY13, we're rolling forward that entire surplus from the previous year. Again, the surplus typically is used for infrastructure needs and increasing our reserves. The reality is, if you stick to the blue section of FY13 and 14, it seems like our ongoing revenue is closer to $780, $790 million, not the $812 million budget that I'm presenting to you today. As I mentioned earlier, what's in that additional money, the additional almost $12 million? Well, 50% of it is related to support for Norfolk Public Schools, a priority that was established earlier this year or late last year in terms of lifelong learning. About 26%, almost 27% of it is dedicated to increases in health care and retirement. Even though we have this tremendous savings in health care, the reality is that health care was going to increase by north of 15%. By having a city-administered health care program, cutting out the middle person, we're able to reduce that increase to something around 8%. So healthcare costs still increase. They would have been much more significant had we not gone to the city-administered program. The salary increase that I mentioned earlier for employees, which would begin January 1, 2014, 2%, is worth about 16% of this increase. And lastly, the net all other, while it's worth about 6% of the increase, as I mentioned beforehand, on an $812 million budget, $775,000 net is not a great percentage. The allocation of resources, lifelong learning. As I mentioned earlier, lifelong learning, economic vitality, and workforce development, 2 priorities that we focused on this year. In the Norfolk Public Schools operating budget, under lifelong learning. The FY 2013 approved budget was about $302 million. The superintendent's budget was about $300 million, and the school board budget that you received is about $309 million. So however you cut it, whether it's a $6.8 million increase over the FY13 budget or $8.8 million increase over the superintendent's budget, there is a request of the city. The request of the city basically is for $7.3 million. So if you review the superintendent's budget versus the school board budget, the big difference is the $107.2 million request, which would have been level funding that was in the superintendent's budget, compared to the $114.5 million request from the school board budget. How do we propose, and again, we are extremely supportive of Norfolk Public Schools. We're extremely supportive of lifelong learning. As I tell you over and over again, I have three of my most precious jewels that are in Norfolk Public Schools. So we understand that Norfolk Public Schools is a significant variable in building that path to the future. Economic vitality and workforce development and lifelong learning. So in terms of the city contribution, we're proposing to increase that by $3 million. So general fund dollars to the Norfolk Public Schools, and we'll tell you how we get to that $3 million, which still leaves a gap. Basically, what we are recommending to the council, and hopefully this is something that could be a collaborative process with the school system. The school system has a salary increase that begins July 1. In order to balance the budget and provide additional funds for the school system, we're recommending that the employee salary increase be January 1. If the school system moves their salary increase to be consistent with the city employee salary increase, both being 2%, that's a savings of $2.1 million. And then lastly, there are a number of opportunities out there that I'll have in the both in my letter to you in the budget book and in the following pages. But what we've suggested as one recommendation is that to outsource custodial services. That's something that the city did a few years back. We're happy with the process, and it saved us easily north of $1 million. We believe, based on an earlier report, that there could be something close to $2.5 million in savings. I will say that that would be over a full fiscal year. So if it takes some time to outsource custodial services, and if it took 6 months, which I don't know how much it would take, clearly you could not achieve all of the savings in one fiscal year, but that's an annual number. Again, the next slide just shows the potential savings and strategies. I would like to talk about the city contribution, how we got to the $3 million. There's $1 million of just increased city support. There's also school health nurses that we have a savings of about $250,000 that we'd like to move over to the school system. And the one-time savings that we have, and let me not say savings, but the one-time infusion of cash that the general fund is going to receive from decentralizing the storehouse, we're suggesting that we move that over to the school system also. And that gets you to $3 million, plus the 3 strategies that I suggested earlier. We had a similar situation last year with a $6.6 million gap, and the city worked diligently with the school system to close that gap. That's on this next slide. Some of that was additional contribution. Some of that was just reviewing what's available from the state and what's available in terms of the city being able to take some of the burden off of the school system. For example, purchasing school buses. That's something that no longer the school system has to be concerned about. The city is purchasing school buses, which is not an easy task, but we believe that we can, instead of having 168 buses and then having 15 years from now having a problem with replacing them, we believe that if we do it over time and have a steady infusion of new buses, but again, that's something that the city's picking up. Additional strategies, and again, this is just a brainstorming session for us, is that closing out old accounts. When I started in 2011, that's one of the first things that we did. We reviewed all old accounts, and we were able to get $5.3 million just from closing out what we would call dated accounts. Also, there's the health care. Although that the school system and the city and NRHA are in the same health care system, this consortium, the cost for health care is different depending on whether you are a city employee, a school employee, or NRHA employee. We believe that if we all were consistent with the charges that are associated with the employees, there are some additional savings there. And then lastly, we've been working with schools for a couple of years, and I'll tell you that the relationship between staff has been great, and there are some opportunities that we have floated around that maybe it's time to actually take advantage of these opportunities in shared services, whether it's communications, fleet, printing, or purchasing, but we remain open to those ideas. Lifelong learning also, there's been a discussion about a dedicated revenue source for schools. In this budget, we propose a 2-cent increase on the real estate rate to be dedicated for school construction, technology, and infrastructure. Terms like dedicated and lockbox is what you'll see in my proposal to you. If you review the value of a 2-cent increase, it's worth about $3.3 million annually. But if you put it in a lockbox, if 25% of our portfolio, i.e. real estate, has grown on average between 5 and 7% over the decades, the assumption would be that this fund could grow also. It's a minimal impact on the average resident. In other words, about $1 a month. So how do we get from $40 to $13? Well, initially, the assumption was the residential assessments would remain flat. So if residential assessments remain flat, the value of a 1 penny increase was about $20 on average. So 2 pennies would be worth about $40. Because on the previous slide I showed you that residential assessments are actually going to decline in 2014, overall assessments will grow, but residential assessments will decline by 1%. The average homeowner's bill, if you did nothing, is going to decrease by another $27. So where we started off saying 2 cents would be worth about $40 to the average homeowner. You take the 40, subtract the 27, and 2 cents is worth about $13 for the average homeowner. And again, that's different communities have different values. Some have increased, some have decreased, but we're just using the aggregate in this example. Okay, so how would this work? So we would start off with the $3.3 million in 2014. The recommendation to council is the first priority be for school construction. And that would be related to the timing. So when the school construction money is needed, the money would be in the fund. But for whatever reason, if the money isn't needed at this point in time, then there's a $22 million list in terms of technology related to the schools. And I don't think anybody's suggesting there's $22 million today. But over a period of time, they have calculated that the technology needs are somewhere around $22 million. So that second bucket could help address some of the technology needs. And the third priority would be infrastructure. So again, lockbox, dedicated revenue source for the priority of school construction, technology, and infrastructure. So all in, under lifelong learning, the local operating support with the $3 million of additional general funds and the $3.3 million that would be moved over to schools. We would hopefully have some type of reporting requirement back to the council, back to the school board. But that $3 million plus the 3.3 is worth about almost a 6% increase over the 2013 $107 million in the budget. So again, lifelong learning encompasses more than just Norfolk Public Schools. While Norfolk Public Schools is a top priority for the city, we're continuing a number of initiatives started in 2013 that we're very proud of. But there are some new actions in 2014, including a public safety internship program where we're working with Norfolk State, and we're also working with TCC, working with ODU, where we can attract individuals who come to school here to stay in the city and work for the city. I'm very excited about an opportunity with Norfolk State, with President Atwater, where we would have an opportunity to diversify our police force by having graduates from Norfolk State be eligible to be a part of our recruit class and stay with us for a period of time and be able to have, whether you call it loan forgiveness or some type of stipend that would help pay off their student loans. Again, lifelong learning, we have this great resource having Norfolk State and Old Dominion, EVMS, Regent University, Tidewater Community College, and Virginia Wesleyan here. We also have this great opportunity under economic vitality and workforce development. There's a vibe that's occurring in the city. Again, we're the cultural, educational, medical, business, and financial hub of the region. And when we start to think about vision, we believe that Norfolk should be able to create an economic climate that incentivizes people who strive to achieve economic success to not only live here, but work here also. Economic vitality and workforce development, we want to make it easier for businesses to thrive here in Norfolk. So there are a couple of things that you'll see in the budget that was provided to you last night, I think somewhere around 580 or so pages. One thing under smart processing is that we talked about the one-stop shop where instead of having to bounce between City Hall and Granby Street, we want to have all the necessary needs in one place, and we're building that as we speak. But also, we believe it's very important to streamline our processes, and that involves a code rewrite as well as changes to our city procurement process that encourages us to work with local companies. On the development side, two positions that we believe are extremely important as a concierge for new small businesses as well as one for existing small businesses. We want to make sure that we're taking care of those businesses that call Norfolk home as well as those businesses that want to call Norfolk home. So we're going to build hopefully on the success of the 2013 budget and not minimize any of our priorities because they all are important. Two that I'd like to point out to you, and we'll have three work sessions to talk about some of the other items in the budget, but initiatives on the South Side with Regent University and initiatives in Park Place under the Safe, Healthy, and Inclusive Communities are very exciting. In terms of the proposed capital improvement plan, I guess the best way to describe it, this in the last few pages here, is that it's essentially the plan that you approved last year. So in FY13, you approved 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. So in FY14, you have FY14, you pick up a new year, FY18. Basically, the FY14 plan is about $16 million more than what was planned originally for FY14. And what makes up that $16 million? Well, there's a couple things that I think is important to state, that while the 2-cent increase for school construction infrastructure and technology and infrastructure is extremely important, it also provides relief to our capital improvement plan. Because in the out years, the assumption was that we would have to use general fund dollars, not something that would be dedicated, to build schools 4 and 5. But by having that type of cash that's available to us, or that resource that's available to us, it allows us to put back in projects that we moved out of 2014. For instance, we zero-funded the neighborhood plans in the 2014 version of the current budget. In the budget that I'm presenting to you, we put money back into the neighborhood plans. But we're able to do that in part because the 2-cent tax increase dedicated to schools takes some of the tension off of the capital improvement plan. The Recreation, Parks, and Open Space Master Plan, one of the things that we didn't do last year, we put seed money in, about $500,000 over the whole 5-year plan. Now we're putting $1 million in FY14 so that we are able to actually take care of some of the issues that are presented in the plan. The plan's a $138 million plan, so it's very difficult to take one bite of that plan in FY14, but at least we're able to put money aside to say that this is important. And one of the key ingredients of the FY14 CIP as it relates to the Recreation, Parks, and Open Space Master Plan, that we include funds for the design of the boxing center in Burrard Park. You'll see a new project in here, which is Camp Allen Elementary School. While it's not one of the 5 schools we've been talking about, the council approved a resolution last fall that if the federal government would pick up 80% of the cost of the school, that the city would pick up the other 20%. In this budget, you will see that 20% match. We also begin the implementation of replacing our firehouses. That's a 2007 report that we have more or less not addressed the needs of our fire stations. And I think many of you have seen Fire Station 11 and Fire Station 12. So instead of having this out in the out years, we pulled it in for the design of that first station in 2014. And we should be able to have the construction money in 2015, as well as the design for the second station and the construction of that in 2016. And lastly, we provide funds for our municipal infrastructure. In January, we had a pretty lengthy discussion about maintenance and our backlog in maintenance, whether it was fleet, facilities, information technology, or streets. So you see in this next chart, we really have our issues with maintaining our infrastructure as well as building. And it's very important that we're able to put aside funds to maintain the infrastructure, because as we've discussed in the past, if you delay addressing a problem, it only gets worse in the out years. The 2014 recommended CIP, the drivers, almost a third of it is dedicated to lifelong learning, specifically Norfolk Public Schools. Norfolk Public Schools, a breakdown of funding, I put it all together. We talked about the $113.5 million in operating funds from the proposed in this budget. Also, the capital improvement plan, when you take a review of the construction as well as the maintenance, is about $32 million. And then there's the other city contribution, which stays on the city's ledger. It doesn't go over to Norfolk Public Schools, but it's still paid out of that $811 million general fund that I'm presenting to you. That includes debt service for school construction, which is almost $10 million. And as we construct more schools, that debt service will go up, not necessarily for schools 4 and 5, but 1, 2, and 3. We took on over school buses, so there's debt service associated with that. School resource officers, school crossing guards, the remaining general fund portion of school nurses, facility maintenance and ground maintenance, all of that adds up to about $13.8 million that is not moved over to the school's fund, but we still pay for it out of the almost $812 million general fund. The last couple of slides will try to, at best, explain what we've tried to accomplish in terms of the 5 schools, the funding for 5 schools. The current budget basically did not include funds in FY13 for school construction, mainly because the thought process was that the school system would not be ready for those dollars. And that's not a negative statement. We always said that when the school system would be ready, we would be ready and prepared to move money up. But it seems like that the additional dollars will not be needed between now and June 30th. So that's why there were no dollars in FY13. FY17, you could make the case that some of it was due to timing, that we did not include dollars, but the biggest part of that is that we were up against our self-imposed constraints. So again, that 2 cents helps us in the out years address our self-imposed constraints. I will tell you that we blow through them in FY15, and that's a problem. We're going to have to get that back under control, because if we don't get that under control, even with everything that I've shown you, we still go through our targets in 15. That's a rating agency issue, and that's something that I would not like to have a discussion with them when it comes to October, and we have to review our credit worthiness, but it is a concern. So what did we do in the FY14 budget? We actually provided funds in FY17 as well as funds in FY18. So if you look across, you'll have $29 million, $29.4 million for Crossroads, which opened in 2012. So there are 4 schools that are left. And what we did is we used the initial estimate as related to the school. So it doesn't take into account Compostela being a K through 8. What it does is it basically says that there was going to be $22 million set aside for 4 schools. So this is the first time in a 5-year plan that you have 1 school that's built and the initial funding for the remaining 4 schools, Compostela, Broad Creek area, Larchmont, and Ocean View. Now again, I will say that this is flexible based on your approval of this 2 cent increase, because the 2 cent increase can help the city move schools 4 and 5 up in the process. So again, I want to start off by saying that depending on where these schools come in, there could be additional costs or there could be savings. But all in for the last 4 schools, there's $88 million that is set aside in this CIP. So in conclusion, we have a general fund budget that is $1.2 billion with almost $812 million being associated with the general fund. I will tell you that as we move forward in FY14, it's very clear that if we want to be an employer of choice, we have to get our arms around a comprehensive review of our compensation plan. It's not necessarily what people make, but what can we do to make sure that there's a process in place that we can attract the best and the brightest and retain the best and the brightest, as well as provide opportunities for everybody who calls Norfolk home. We'll continue to review financial policies, healthcare, retirement, and funding our reserves. I'd like to thank Team Norfolk for all of their hard work, as well as the budget staff. And I'd like to give a special thanks to the budget director and my assistant city manager, Sabrina Joy Hogg, who's wearing 2 hats. And I can tell you that the last time I wore 2 hats, I actually ended up taking a sabbatical for a couple of years in Richmond. So I want to thank you for hanging in there with us. And it's a great team, council. I'm very proud of the team. It's a budget that we wish we could do more, but I feel confident that we gave it our best shot, and now I turn it over to you.
Right. All right, Mr. Manager, well, thank you very much, and thank you for that very concise presentation. The council is scheduled to meet with the school board down at our council chambers at 3 o'clock. So, Marcus, again, thank you, and thanks to your team for the proposed budget. It's now in our hands, and we'll take it from here. So, okay,
Thank you.
Thanks very much, and we will adjourn to downstairs.
Thank you.